Science and technology and innovation, these are indispensable in the modern economy, in the modern world.
The meeting at the MSI, and we resolved among about 6 to 8 of us, local members, first to form ASE Philippines so that we could continue to host meetings here, but also to go on a massive campaign to try to get support from the national government through the legislative and executive branches to invest more in science and technology. So it started with a white paper, a position paper that we co-authored among 6 of us, namely Ernie Pernia, Cesar Saloma, Rador Asansa, Toby Dairita Fataneo, and Aldin Colaba de la Salle, and myself.
So PAASE historically, in the past 10, 20 years for sure, have been collaborating with our counterparts here in the Philippines at various universities. And a lot of these interactions probably started as peer-to-peer. But thankfully, we have the Department of Science and Technology here in the Philippines, and they've come up with some really helpful and very impactful programs that actually enable PAASE members that are based in the United States and other parts of the world to actually come here and do extensive research and academic partnerships and collaborations.
Well, I think that one of the good things that PAASE is doing is really trying to stay in touch with the researchers and the scientists here in the Philippines. So I think that is one of the good programs that they keep on supporting some of the initiatives of our researchers and scientists here in the country, trying to align also their assistance towards the plans of the Philippine government.
It's very important that the PAASE members and scientists based in the Philippines are continuously in contact, so we will know the needs of the Filipinos and opportunities that Filipinos can have to do science with their PAASE counterparts. So these interactions, such as the conference that we're holding and the annual conferences that we have.
The Philippines and the scientists there have very unique perspective that adds to discoveries and inventions advancing in general the field.
These members, because they are part of an academy, it implies that they are productive. So they have publications, they have innovations, they have inventions, patents, and they have, they have an impact on society. Okay, so these are the people who can convince government, invest more in science and technology, and that was really the gist of our paper, our position paper in 2000. And it is Ernie Pernia who said that R&D by nature is expensive and it is a public good. So it is important for the government to take the lead in investing in R&D.
To increase the economic growth potential of the country, we cannot continue to just rely on traditional inputs into production as capital and labor. We also need to develop our expertise in science and technology and innovation so that we can come up with new systems, new ways of doing things.
I think that science, researchers, industry, and even the government is really like an ecosystem of knowledge. So I think it doesn't really matter if you're coming from a private institution or a public institution, such as a state university. I think we all have a role to play to improve the research capabilities and scientific knowledge here in the country. I think it is about time for us to realize that one of our roles as academics, as researchers, as scientists, is to actually contribute to that global body of knowledge.
And the role of this cooperation among these government agencies really is to be able to attract science and technology, global-based companies to set up shop here. And that is really key in terms of developing the science and technology innovation ecosystem in the country.
Particularly because there's that deep desire. And what PAASE does and can do more of is to promote this relationship between its members.
We really need to ratchet up the appreciation, the recognition of the importance of science and technology and innovation.
And we are all trying to attain what we call the common good, the greater, higher, long-term good of the Filipino people.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Isang magandang umaga, magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat, mga nasa Pilipinas, magandang umaga at sa mga nasa Amerika at ang panig ng Estados Unidos, sa Canada. Magandang araw po sa ating lahat. Greeting to all the participants and attendees of APAMS 2023, the annual PAASE meeting and symposium. I am Mariano Rojas Santo Domingo, the president of PAASE. And it is with great pleasure that we gather here, though virtually, to explore the theme, reimagining the training of 21st century science, technology, engineering, arts, mathematics, and medicine, or STEAM workforce. So this year's conference is an incredible opportunity for all of us to delve into the dynamic world of STEAM education and its vital role in shaping our future. As we stand in the intersection of various disciplines, it becomes increasingly clear that a collaborative approach is essential for fostering innovation and addressing complex global challenges. The fusion of science, technology, engineering, arts, mathematics, and medicine opens doors to limitless possibilities and paves the way for groundbreaking research and discoveries. APAMS 2023 serves as a platform to exchange knowledge, share best practices, and envision a future where STEAM education transcends boundaries. Through engaging discussions and thought-provoking presentations, we aim to ideate and transform the ways we train the 21st century workforce. By integrating creativity, critical thinking, and interdisciplinary collaboration, we can equip the next generation with the skills necessary to excel in an ever-evolving world. PAASE has been at the forefront of these efforts, and APAMS is just one of the avenues by which we foreground innovation, not only in science and technology research and development, but also in ways we bring people, organizations, and institutions together in our advocacies of policies that create spaces and leverage resources for science and technology innovation. And we are very thankful for the support of like-minded leaders, such as our esteemed keynote speaker tonight and our keynote speaker and other presenters throughout the duration of this conference. So this year's APAMS is a combination of purely online and face-to-face with segments in hybrid format. So to accommodate the different situations by which our audience will access the information to be shared in this forum and the ways by which they would prefer to engage with us. So for the next several days, we shall listen to 9 plenary keynote speakers and lecturers, 7 keynote parallel lecturers, of course, our 2 Severino and so lectureship awardees for science and engineering, 39 plenary speakers or presenters, 28 parallel session presenters, and 13 poster presenters from various disciplines and interdisciplinary areas. I'm also proud to let all of you know that for this year, we have more than 30 APAMS 2023 graduate fellows from the north to the south and from many different countries where our Filipino graduate students are situated currently. And many of them are actually presenting their posters tonight, in the Philippines. So together, we have the power to imagine the training of the STEM workforce, nurturing a diverse and inclusive community of individuals who will lead us into a brighter future. So let us seize this opportunity to inspire one another, spark new ideas, and forge meaningful connections that will shape the landscape of STEAM education for years to come in the Philippines and elsewhere. So on behalf of PAASE, its officers and members, my co-convener, Dr. Cynthia, and all the members of APAMS 2023 Organizing Committee, for their untiring efforts, I'd like to thank all of them for putting this conference together. So I also extend my gratitude to all the participants, speakers, sponsors who have contributed to the success of APAMS 2023. So we thank especially our APAMS sponsors, the family of Dr. Severino and Mrs. Pasco, the UP Medical Alumni Society in America, or UPMASA, Dr. Rosano Locsin, Drs. March and Edsel Peña. So may this conference inspire us to break new ground and propel STEAM education towards unparalleled heights. Mabuhay ang PAASE, mabuhay po tayong lahat. I wish you all an enriching and transformative experience at APAMS 2023. Maraming salamat po. At ngayon, nais ko pong tawagin ang Vice Presidente ng PAASE, si Dr. Gladys Completo, para ipakilala ang ating panuhing tagapagsita ngayong gabi. Salamat po.
Maraming salamat, Mario. Ako po, I'm Dr. Gladys Completo, the current Vice President of PAASE. So it is an honor and privilege to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Cynthia Rose Banzon Bautista. Dr. Maria Cynthia Rose Bautista is a member of the Advisory Council of the Second Congressional Commission on Education and trustee of the Philippine Institute of Development Studies. She was also the former Vice President for Academic Affairs of the University of the Philippines System. She was a professor of sociology and a former dean of UP Diliman's College of Social Sciences and Philosophy, and the executive director of the UP Center for Integrative and Development Studies and commissioner of the Commission on Higher Education. Dr. Bautista served on the advisory or governing boards of institutions such as the Philippine Institute of Development Studies, Philippine Social Science Council, Human Development Network, Asian Scholarship Foundation, and the NUS Asian Research Institute. She chaired the committee and the ASEAN Qualifications Reference Framework Task Force and sat in the executive committee of the ASEAN Quality Assurance Network. Dr. Bautista obtained her BA degree in sociology from UP Diliman, magna cum laude, and later earned her master's and PhD degrees in sociology at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. She received several prestigious awards, including the National Academy of Science and Technology's Outstanding Young Scientist and Outstanding Publication Awards, the 10 Outstanding Women in the Nation's Service, and the National Research Council of the Philippines Achievement Award for the Social Sciences. Without further ado, let us all welcome Dr. Cynthia Rose Banzon Bautista.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gladys. So Dr. Mar and Dr. Senya, the board members of PAASE and the indefatigable organizers of this conference, the distinguished members of PAASE, colleagues, and friends. Good morning to those in the Philippines. Good evening to those in the United States. It is my honor to actually be addressing the first day of this particular conference. So let me show my slides, and I beg the indulgence of some of my colleagues from the University of the Philippines here, because some of these slides have been tirelessly shown since maybe the first month of the pandemic to signal the fact that we can no longer go back to the old way of teaching and learning and training STEAM as well as all the other students of the university. So my presentation, our keynote this morning, is divided into 3 parts. The first is developing STEAM human capital of the Philippines for the disruptive world, the 21st century. Developing STEAM in the learning poverty context of today's Philippines, and a very brief concluding note. So I will pack everything within 25 minutes. So we've always discussed the fact that we live in a very, very, very disruptive world. We have, on one hand, climate crisis. We just are recovering from pandemic, but we are also not sure there will not be other pandemics in the future. We are in the 4th and 5th industrial revolution. Of course, the 5th industrial revolution is the fact that we are supposed to be living with AI, and we are living with AI now. Geopolitical tensions and uncertainty, especially in our part of the world. Polarization and distrust here in the Philippines, as well as in the United States. I get a lot more in the United States at this time. Energy and food insecurity, globalization and its discontents that has led a lot of localization and nationalism and other sources of disruption. And of course, the response at the education level is really a holistic and transformational education that actually privileges environmental integrity, and it privileges the economic viability of our planet for the next generation, and of course, lifelong learning and quality education. The global response to the problems of the 19th and 20th century, which are still with us in the 21st century, is really the Sustainable Development Goals. Higher education is actually seen as a very important actor in the green transition, as well as in the blue transition. as well as in the digital transformation. That's really part of what can help solve solve the world's problems. I have repeated this time and again. I'd repeated this even before I went to UP. The global response to rapid technological and social changes in the 1990s was this paradigm shift to learning. It is actually a paradigm shift that is very profound, because the shift is from the transmission of knowledge to the individual who is actually learning. And learning is an individual experience so that they'll be able to cope. And this is a very beautiful phrase, which I have tirelessly repeated as well, which is that to help individuals adapt to the evolving requirements of the labor market and better master the changing time frames and rhythms of individual existence. Since the 1990s, but worse at this time, more so at this time. Of course, there are different skills and competencies that are required. What's common, and there are various ways of putting this together. I know that the MIT Jawil Education Lab actually looked at 41 frameworks and put together the thinking, interacting, managing, and leading skills. And then we have McKinsey. But what's interesting is really most of these skills are really soft skills, including the skill to be comfortable with ambiguity, because we live in a world of ambiguity, a world they used to call the VUCA world, or they still call the VUCA world. And so we also have thinking skills that are beyond what we usually say as a critical thinking skills that we have been trying to hone in our students since before. I will not go deeply into this, but I will share the slides after I put all the sources. The Forbes actually put it together this way: digital literacy, data literacy, critical. That's why math, understand at least of math and the digital technologies is important, not just for students, but also for the teachers, because it's very difficult to actually teach critical thinking, especially if you're asking students to discern from all the fake news around, if we do not understand the algorithm of social media, for instance. Emotional intelligence, creativity, collaboration, flexibility, leadership skills, time management, and the curiosity and the will to actually continuously learn. There's a lot of interdisciplinary contextualizing that is needed at this time. So there are a lot of higher order thinking skills, as well as soft skills that are necessary for actually collaboration, because collaboration is what will allow us to go beyond whatever problems we have and try to solve them. So what are the educational transformations? I just want to share that we are still partly in the 20th century. We're divided into different disciplines like sciences, business, liberal arts. But the digital world that we are in now, and the needs of a seriously challenged world, actually requires us to come together, requires us to have more interdisciplinarity and transdisciplinarity as well. And basically, also allows it or makes it easier. I had shared this with Paase some time ago when we were talking about research, and that, of course, the ideal typical modes of knowledge production. You have the mode one, which we are more accustomed to. It's disciplinal. Knowledge is produced in the context of the academic interests of those who are in the academic communities. We are organized by disciplines. Our quality is technically through peer review, and university is the site of knowledge production. Mode two, which is actually the multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary mode to address particular challenging problems so that they can be solved, actually is knowledge produced in the context of application to concrete problems, which have implications also for the theoretical, because it is not true. When you were young, we were told that you have to have your theory and then you apply it. Theory is also developed in application, transcends to theoretical and methodological positions of different groups. Quality is not only assessed in technical, but also in terms of relevance and usefulness. And of course, you have multiple sites of knowledge production, and it is good to bring all of those together, all of those partners together. Just a good example would be CBOL of the College of Medicine. I'm not sure if some of our colleagues from the college may have Medicine is here. Are here, sorry. Surgical Innovation and Biotechnology Laboratory. You had bringing together physicians, engineers, chemists, artists to produce certain innovations. And this was most apparent during the pandemic, and there were very different things that were developed, for instance, by the College of Medicine as well as the College of Engineering of UP Diliman. So you have the ventilator, you have the N95 disinfection with UV and H2O2 vaporization, etc. So I'll just go quickly. Self-contained disinfecting cubicles. And COVID-19 is only one instance of such collaboration. And we actually hope that such collaboration, because people saw the actual effect or result of such collaboration, will actually be scaled more. And there will be more such collaborations across the Philippines, from collaborations among different academics in the country, among different PAASE members. Okay. NUS is particularly, I guess, interdisciplinary is a big thing now, because everyone is expected to act, especially those in STEAM, to actually go beyond just our usual academic work and our usual research, to be able to work with others, so that we would find more, we would have more scientific findings as well that will actually lead to certain solutions to very concrete problems. NUS actually broadened, because they used to have the British system. They broadened, they had a GE, which they did not really have before. They foundation, and then they decrease their deep or specialized courses. But what is interesting is that they encourage their students to have double majors, or at least have a minor in a different branch of knowledge, because the assumption is that it would be your exposure to different branches of knowledge, your exposure to general education is what will help develop or hone the interdisciplinary mind. Basically, they also reorganized some of the colleges so that they bring together different faculty from different disciplines. They also, at the beginning, they have virtual general education college, so that they can bring together also those who are teaching general education. What I'm just saying is, we are starting in the Philippines to be more flexible. Flexibility is our goal, but there are a lot more infrastructure, policies, and programs that we may have to overhaul in order to get to where we want to go in terms of developing the skills and competences of our students, as well as our own skills and competence, and upskilling and upgrading of such skills. This is really how it is now, how it would be. This is really where we're supposed to be in 2017, 2018, but it took the pandemic to actually push us to move towards something like this, where you have the structure is a convergence of disciplines, greater flexibility. Flexibility means we look at the policies on attendance, etc., and policies on validation. So students might be able to validate certain courses without attending them, but going through materials and also going through some virtual experience. Of course, academy-industry linkage, but we're not just connecting with the industry, we're also connecting with communities and civil society. And then you have immersive. The learning itself is immersive and experiential. You have 21st century modes, which I think those of our colleagues in the United States might have been doing for a long time. And then futuristic learning spaces and technologies. And of course, assessments will no longer be the usual paper and pencil assessment, but authentic, performance-based, etc. It is interesting that I think the Chronicle of Higher Education actually says that we need to have an immersive and flexible learning space with a mix of face-to-face, virtual, and experiential coursework. For those of us in the Philippines, it is quite new to actually be in a residential campus and yet not be expected to be in the classroom listening to lectures, applying concepts to research projects and internships to prepare students for the world of work. So I think this is something that our science and technology departments and committees are getting into, but I guess in the Philippines, we have to do this more purposefully and alternating between independent and collaborative learning to provide a diverse learning experience. Unlike our colleagues in the United States, we have not been good in the Philippines in training independent learners. Basically, at the height of the pandemic, even those who are supposed to be among the brightest were complaining about the fact that they are not used to independent learning. But I guess that is where the future is, because individuals who need to cope with all of the disruptions have to be able to work independently. We have new research-based paradigms on how learning happens, and this was a keynote in the Times Higher Education Teaching Excellence Summit. And Dr. Wyman actually says that, of course, lectures are okay for a short time, but lectures, the way we were trained, that's no longer the way people should be trained. That was no longer the way years ago, but that's not how it will be in the future, because learning happens when the brain is exercised. So without listening and being passive in the classroom while the teacher lectures, no matter how brilliant the teacher is, does not really exercise the brain. There was an experiment using highly experienced professor with good student ratings who may have been very good in lecturing. And you have the experimental group, which is using new methods. And of course, experimental group did well. And abstracting from this, innovative research-based classroom would require challenging realistic problems, students practicing decisions, students collaborating with peers. All of this changes the way we teach, pushes out of many of us out of our comfort zones, because that means teaching in a different way. Of course, technology-enabled and technology-enhanced learning is the way to go. Well, extended reality and robotics, and of course, this is learning gained through immersive experience that actually simulate life or the real life. Actually, the university procured, and I think it's already there, a reality haptic dental simulation system that actually provides a realistic touch and feel of the dental instruments, such as the dental drilling instrument, combined with an excellent detailed 3D visual presentation, not only of the hard tissues, but also of the soft tissues of a virtual patient, and provides a lot of feedback, immediate feedback, and gives the professor a chance to actually observe the performance of the students. Of course, we have generated the GPTs. We had Chat GPT, and I know how wonderful it is for some, how scary it is for others. I guess it is something that we just have to embrace, except that there are many things that we will have to take in. And I just put this, this is Hage, Joseph Hage actually discussed this a lot in one of the conferences in May. So the ethical and practical challenges, academic integrity in higher education, and the ethical include plagiarism, of course, compromising academic integrity. When are we crossing the line? When you use it as a tool, at what point are you already plagiarizing? The ownership of intellectual property as well as content that it produces. Bias, because the AI language models depend on data that is used that may actually have unintended biases like cultural biases. Dependence of students on AI language models could develop, of course, would result in underdeveloped critical thinking skills and writing abilities. I am reminded of the Chris Bernido and the late Victoria Bernido, because in their school in Hagna, Bohol, and in their reading of cognitive science theories, writing is essential for a lot of brain activities. But anyway, so AI might take that on. Verification of accuracy of AI-generated content. And this is important for researchers, for us in the community of PAASE, makes it challenging to assess reliability of research leveraging such tools. Basically, but where are we? I mean, I've been talking about where it should be and more or less how it should go there. I'm not going to the details because it's going to be very difficult to actually operationalize many of the things we're talking about at the classroom level, because it requires a mindset change on the part of everyone, and it also requires infrastructure support. But anyway, we had a project in the Philippines, and some of you may have been participating in this project. It's the Science, Technology, Research, and Innovation for Development Philippines. It's the USAID-supported STRIDE project, which actually would like to help the Philippines develop its innovation ecosystem. And it has 5 dynamic processes, and the first of which is what we're talking about in this conference. It's education and human capital development and research and knowledge creation. I won't go to the others. This is all the way to the translation, all the way to the environment for collaboration that will further produce innovations. But what are stride findings about the human capital, and this is just in the science, technology, and engineering fields. They had a lot of respondents, and the respondents seem to say, or maybe they say it this diplomatically, that training in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics in the Philippines is acceptable by global standards. I say maybe diplomatically, but anyway. However, and this is very important, the training is too focused on getting students to pass board examinations with an outmoded curriculum that neither teaches students about new technologies nor exposes them to a research culture. We already know the problems of research. We have a lot of teaching load, etc., and why it is very difficult for researchers to actually research in a more intensive way. But here it is really the way we teach, that we teach to the board examinations. We don't expose them to the technologies that are needed now in their field. And then Stride, they had a 2014 evaluation, and we're looking at it again in 2019. They also flagged an oversupply of STEM graduates, which is actually ironic because we do not have enough STEM graduates. We don't have enough STEM students, although I'm happy to say that I looked at the figures in the University of the Philippines, and the proportion of those students enrolled in STEM without arts is actually increasing. It's already more than half of the population of the university. But the oversupply is the fact that because we don't have enough work to absorb them, that's why we have to develop more intensely our innovation ecosystem in order to absorb the science graduates, technology graduates, of course, the art graduates. They migrate somewhere else, or they work in other fields. But of course, COVID-19 actually helped address some of the problems, at least address the problem of the way students are taught in STEM, because COVID-19 actually forced us or catalyzed the digital transformation that is now ongoing. And of course, it will take a little time, not just a little, maybe more time, because of the mindset change. But of course, in the Philippines, what this means is you will have rising inequality, and that is something maybe PAASE might also look into, because the global divide, the digital divide, is actually dividing us. I will be remiss if I talk about how we train, how we teaching and learning, and for the 21st century, all the skills that have to be taught, if I do not talk about a big problem that we have. We're assuming that we would have all of this, the ones who will go to our portals in higher education, the ones who will go to the STEAM fields, the ones who will train and learn, that there will be many more of them. But we have a serious problem. I guess it is a learning crisis. 1 out of 3 children in the Philippines is stunted, with implications for their future workforce. So our human capital development has to go back to real basic stuff. Like if children are stunted and if their cognitive development is impaired, then your future workforce generally will not be at the competitive edge. They will not be the ones pulling us to be nationally competitive. There's a learning poverty, and this is also very serious. 90% are unable to read and understand a simple text by age 10. That's 90%. Of course, most of them may be coming from the public sector, but later I will show you that that's not the case. In addition to learning outcomes before the pandemic, there are considerable learning losses because of the pandemic. This is the state of global learning. This is the World Bank. Of course, we will have questions about methodology, what's the language, etc. But anyway, look at the Philippines. It's so far below. Learning poverty takes into consideration, not learning deprivation is not being able to read at age 10, or at least read and understand certain simple paragraphs or simple messages. Learning poverty combines learning deprivation and school deprivation, or those children who are out of school. And the Philippines is really low, way below all our other ASEAN neighbors. And what is really concerning, or what is really bothersome, is learning deprivation, because reading is actually the gate to learning all other fields, maybe including mathematics. These are the PISA results, the Program for International Student Assessment. Only 1 out of 5 Filipino students achieved at least a minimum proficiency level, level 2, in overall reading literacy. Private school children had more, 2 out of 5. Public, 1 out of 6, but still 2 out of 5, even for your private institutions. Only 1 out of 5 Filipino students attained at least a minimum proficiency of level 2 in mathematical literacy. For private, it's 1. For public, it's 1. So mathematics is a weakness across fields. This is the equity profile. I'm saying that the percentage of our students, regardless of their social class, rural and urban residents, gender, language, home, type of school, etc., is dismally low. And interestingly, I guess it's here, if you would look at the school type, I used to think that more, no, maybe I'll go back to the path. Oh, sorry. Should go back to the. Okay, here. If you have the public, private, and private independent, private dependent are those private schools that still get vouchers. Private independent are the likes of Ateneo, La Salle. But look at the private independent. 43% are below minimum proficiency levels. Of course, they're higher than most, 56%, but 43% are below minimum levels. Oh, sorry. So this is it. Children from private schools perform better in tests, but their share in enrollment is continuously dwindling. I would like to nuance this, because it may not be true for all public schools or all classes in public schools, because public schools actually give a lot of input, or maybe the science schools are already like private, but the public schools, regular public schools, pay more attention to their honor classes. And I guess the honor classes perform equally, if not better, than private schools. But this is also another thing, the learning gap. Whether we have senior high school makes it better because the proficiency levels are higher because of senior high school, but the learning gap is 5.5 years. So in general, an average 18-year-old Filipino student spent more time in school but learned less than their counterparts in comparator countries. There are, however, solutions that are there and maybe, or what worked in poor areas. So you have the model of the Bernidos, which is the parallel learning, individual activity, more than anything else. They have the one teacher going to different classes, but they don't spend more than 30% in being there in the class. They are actually focusing on independent learning. They claim that about 75% of the students working on materials that are based on at least what they consider to be the materials for that level, or different individual activities that are at appropriate level, and no homeworks, etc. But I just want to say they're all over now. I guess they have impact, and they already have students who are able to pass UPCAT and are able to even pursue their graduate degrees outside the country. But let me just conclude this discussion. So I guess what is the mission and what my presentation actually is saying? PAS's 10-point agenda is laudable by reinforcing science, technology, and innovation, human capital, development, promoting STI in the regions, removing structural, institutional, and other barriers to S&T, R&D, developing S&T data infrastructure, increasing and leveraging STI funding, crafting evidence-based policies and programs. I saw Giselle talking about executive and legislative policies that PASE would like to actually influence, enabling multi-stakeholder partnerships, advancing internationalization, our partnership, of course, with colleagues in the United States, and maybe eventually expand this elsewhere. PASE is helping build and nurture the Philippine innovation system at the level of higher education, and it's continuously pushing it. But while this is already a significant contribution, Our wish is that because volunteerism is actually alive and well in PASI, I wish that some of our PASI members would volunteer to address the learning crisis by finding ways of helping change the teaching and learning, especially of science and mathematics, to build a strong foundation for the students who are before they go to college, for them to have the opportunity to go through our higher education portal. I'm not religious, maybe a bit spiritual, but I usually don't end with some biblical quote. But this is a quote that I actually like. There's a book of Esther. And in the book of Esther, if those of you are Christian might know this, her uncle Mordecai says that do not think because Esther was a queen and Mordecai wanted to save the Jews through the king, but Esther didn't want to talk to the king because the king, unless the king actually calls for her anyway. So do not think that because you're in his house, you alone of all the Jews will escape. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows, but that you have come to this royal position precisely for this moment. Who knows, but we are here at this time for the task of nourishing and shaping young minds and older minds, hopefully even those younger than our college students, shaping them to be curious about the world, seek truth, find solutions to problems, and innovate in a technology-enabled and enhanced environment. Equally important, we have come to our current positions in life to help create zones of trust and spaces of collaboration among scientists, engineers, technologists, artists, mathematicians, health professionals on the one hand, and communities of partners on the other, affirming and nurturing the predilection of those in our circles to volunteer and make life better, especially for the disadvantaged in our society. So PAASE's annual conference is a significant step in this direction. Thank you very much for this opportunity to share a few insights in this conference.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bautista, for that comprehensive presentation and for challenging PAASE, how we will be able to help the younger generation. So if you have questions, please just raise your hand. And if you can also write it in the chat box.
I have a question for Dr. Sinch. Sinch, thank you for the challenge. We're always, getting challenges from government agencies and universities and communities, and we of course consider those and would really like to make a difference, especially in the educational sector. Although our initial, uh, uh, positions, or positionalities in terms of the higher education and improving R&D and so on and so forth. But my question is about, you mentioned about the transformation in curriculum or curricula, and in universities you gave NUS as a model, and I know you've been at CHED for a while. I'm just wondering how much of our universities, private and public or state universities, have been moving toward the direction of interdisciplinarity? How many of our universities have already begun offering minors? Because I know in UP, it's not yet even that much, right? There are some, but it's probably like a stubborn issue about really opening up our disciplines to other so that we can like share knowledge and have more multi cross-disciplinary approaches in our learning.
So I guess that's a real struggle. We're still maybe other countries have started moving faster. I know that, for instance, you have in Singapore, you have the Singapore Management University that actually created a college for integrative learning. So that its students actually help develop their own curriculum. But the Philippines, we're still far from it. Our disciplinal the boundaries are still very intact. Minors, yes, the University of the Philippines, for instance, has started minors. Dati kasi wala tayong minors eh. We have minors, but it's the unit that where you are enrolled in that actually says you're minoring in it. It's not a minor offered by another institution. So now we are developing minors, clusters. They're not the usual regular minors, but those are still very few. Interdisciplinary, long ago in the 1990s, I guess in the 2000s, early 2000s, we hope, because we're in the social sciences. In the social sciences, we have common, there are different theoretical and methodological positions. We're not like the natural sciences that actually have hegemonic hegemonic scientific empiricist paradigm. In the social sciences, we have different methodological positions, theoretical positions. And they cut across the social sciences. So we were thinking, why don't we break our departments? And that was something we discussed as a faculty. Why don't we break our departments and then create interdisciplinary groups of those who have common methodological positions? That idea was dropped immediately because it would require overhauling the organizations. I guess even now, as I speak, the university will be moving on towards overhauling, because everything else, the pandemic catalyzed all the things that are possible. But operationalizing the possibilities, translating them into policies, specific policies and programs, as basic as attendance policy, which we still have, as basic as that, I guess those things have to change, and that will take a while. So that also means you need cadre of volunteers within the university, academic volunteers who will push it. This is a reform, and reforms are difficult, especially because in the Philippines we don't have as much continuity as maybe in other countries. Yeah. Sorry if I'm not sure if I answered your question, Mar.
No, you did. Thank you very much, Cynthia.
Yeah. Yasinia Tigna, you have a question? Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to unmute. I just wanted to say thank you very much, Dr. Bautista. That was a very enlightening lecture, and I learned a lot. And I'm so happy to have listened very intently to what you were saying, because it translates also to many things that we are experiencing here in the United States. But one of the things that I also enjoyed was to see that there is a second version. You know, when you were mentioning that UP Engineering and UP College of Medicine partnership, actually, I must say that is version 2. I did version 1 way back in 1984 when it was Dr. Viray, who was the Dean of the UP College of Engineering. And I had just returned with my doctorate, and there was no equipment in the lab. So I asked a friend of mine, Professor Romy Solis of the College of Engineering, who happened to be the younger brother of my high school friend, if he could help me produce some instruments that I could use in my bench. And so he said, oh yeah, we have an engineering lab. And I think at that time our assistant was Professor Rowena Guevara. She was not yet a professor then, obviously, but so we used the College of Engineering students to construct three medical equipment with the funding from PCHRD, in fact, with Dr. Sara, not from Dr. Viray's Picasturd, although I think he gave some money too. So that kind of innovation is a one-off because it was based on human interactions, me and Professor Solis. in order for it to be sustainable, it has to be institutionalized. So if there is an active ongoing program that I left and Romy left and everybody left, so it's no longer there, or there was no funding available. But if it's an institutionalized thing, then it will remain, and it's interdisciplinary, cross-sectoral, as I would say. And it's extremely immersive because it was skills-based, and they had to think, how do you measure blood flow in microvessels using components that you can buy from the computer, industry, which are not so expensive, for instance, things of that nature. And the other thing that I wanted to comment on, and because of your experience with SHED, is, it was really disappointing to see how quote unquote illiterate our students are compared to our ASEAN neighbors, and how much of this we are trying to address higher education, but shouldn't we first address the primary school and, the big grades 1 to 12, or wherever it is in the Philippines now, in order to be able to even aspire to learn more. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the stage one for what was done in 1984. I guess it's also not the case that we absolutely have no initiatives like the initiative that you had in 1984. You have many such initiatives. I have friends who actually do work on their own. But yes, you're right. It's so individual. It's really human interaction based. It's not institutionalized. And I guess what this actually calls for is more institutionalized collaboration, like CBOL. Also, that's why colleges, that's why some universities abroad actually create colleges, or at least bring together or reorganize so that they will have a different environment. The reason why I brought in the learning poverty is precisely that basically all of the skills and competences we're talking about that we're supposed to hone in higher ed is already at the late stage of honing. That they should, problem solving, for instance, should begin in basic education. I guess I'm very old. At my time, problem solving, we were not solving problems except math problems. But we were not really trained to actually look at anything that's applied. We were told, even in growing years and even maybe first 2 years of college, that you learn your theory. You are so embedded in theories because then you will apply them in context, which is not really how the world goes. So that and the learning poverty actually constrains even that development in the early years. So my suggestion, it's not because it's not the mandate of PAASE, but maybe PAASE might have some experts or may know of certain circles of people who can actually just give different ways of basic education suggestions of how things can be done for proper learning, apart from the models that we already have here. So that, I guess, yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to read Dr. Asuncion Raimundo's comment here in the chat box. Dr. Cinch, great talk. If we have an abundance of STEM graduates, what do you think we should do to retain them in STEM, especially to be in research or pursue higher degrees?
So I guess we should have more research that actually will absorb them. And right now, I guess in the university, because for university-based research, that would actually mean that we would have that we have mechanisms or programs for them. So at least a teaching fellowship and teaching assistantship that you also have in the US. But that's not the job. It is a very temporary job for our researchers unless they actually get involved as we develop research, so that research is continuing and they're absorbed in the work that becomes their profession. Right now, we have researchers, and the researchers maybe are teaching research assistants, and then after the project, it's a very projectized thing. It's not also it's the same thing Dr. Cynthia was mentioning earlier. We have to actually have more institutionalized stuff. We used to have, CHED used to actually support the Philippine California Advanced Research Institute. Of course, it was the first experience of the country, of the Philippines investing 10 billion in research across 5 years. First time the Congress could do this. I couldn't imagine the questions raised in Congress because we're not used to actually giving money and paying researchers also in other universities in fields that we would want to push. The dream then, or at least at the conceptual level, the dream then was eventually there will be a laboratory, or there will be at least a laboratory where our researchers can be seconded when they go back to their institutions, but that's no longer there. PICAI also had a lot of issues and a lot of problems. But it's something like this. It's a more institutionalized research. We have research institutes, and I guess developing a career for researchers that are beyond just being a research assistant, a research associate, and then you go. But that means we have continuous research. So I don't know your experience in the United States. I suppose with the federal funds in the past, I don't know if the federal funds are still there. You actually built research institutions, and I know when we were studying, we would have friends who have careers in their research. So I guess research is one area for getting them to stay in the country, and as well as innovations. If you have more innovations too, and then they're there thinking for how the innovation can proceed, and you have more innovations beyond one innovation, I guess that one would help. But beyond that, we're still in the situation of a lot of our STEM graduates, some of them don't even end up in STEM professions.
Thank you, ma'am. Perhaps more research professor items, just a suggestion, if you can do.
Actually, items are extremely difficult to get from DBM, but I suppose in the United University of the Philippines already have some institutes that actually transform the professor item into a research professor item, and they get classified as research professors. I suppose in UP Los Baños that's something that can be done more easily. The community there and the ecology is easy. But UP Diliman also is doing that in a very, very limited way. But yes, government beyond the university, I guess government must think that research is really important. I'm happy with DOST. I'm happy that DTI is also very supportive now. But I guess the problem in the Philippines is we go by election seasons. Thankfully, DOST, because it is outside, it is in the corridor of indifference of government. In other words, there is nothing, they don't have to be political. So corridor of indifference, so it can continue. I guess for other units where there are political interests, it might be difficult. I guess we're a country that changed every 6 years. So that also has an effect on building institutions and continuity.
Okay, Mario, can I just ask one question? So, okay, so I have a question about the potential of AI its effect in education. Can you comment on the potential challenges that arise from using AI, such as potential job loss for teachers? For example, AI-enabled tools potentially replace important tasks that teachers can do, such as grading and giving feedback to students' work. Can this impact the number of teachers schools will hire and can also perhaps result in job losses?
Well, that's one of the fears. However, I don't know if that will really, if we are purposive about it. Okay, anyway. When ChatGPT came out, it became a very popular thing at a certain point. I guess the first webinar of UP Diliman had to do with ChatGPT. And at that time, you had schools that refused to actually allow GPT, artificial intelligence, to come in. And I guess our emerging position was we just have to embrace it because that's the future and that's where it is. So it's really knowing what to do. I mean, right now, I have a colleague who actually uses ChatGPT to test her tests, her exams. If ChatGPT can answer, then she tweaks the exam so that the students, even if they go to ChatGPT, won't be able to answer. But all of these are things that have to be done in order to safeguard against the technology. But at the same time, the technology offers a lot of potential opportunities as well. It can be a tool for critical thinking also. I mean, you can make students go to ChatGPT and make them verify so that they understand how the technology goes. But the challenges are still really there. I guess we just have to address the challenges. It cannot be as that the equivalent of Turnitin is going to be slower than the development of the GPTs. So it's really, there should be space where there are no technologies. And maybe one suggestion is a space where students and teachers talk to each other. Now, whether teachers will no longer be needed, I guess they would still be as facilitators, but that's a totally different role. That's the role we want teachers to be in, but it's not yet their mindset, because you also need human intervention to actually help develop values, as well as even values in science that are connected to that. So I don't foresee, especially in the Philippines, because job losses, there's a lot of protest if you have a job loss. So I guess there would be a redefinition of jobs or tasks, but we are still very, very, very far from that. Gladys, so far at the moment. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Ma'am.
Thank
Are there any other questions? I think, yes, I think we already addressed all of the questions. So now we would like to present our certificate of appreciation to Ma'am, Dr. Bautista. So let me just read our certificate of appreciation. Again, thank you very much, Ma'am, for challenging us and for your very comprehensive and lecture. This certificate of appreciation is awarded to Cynthia Rose B. Bautista, PhD, in grateful acknowledgement, valuable knowledge and insights as a keynote speaker in the 2023 annual PAASE meeting and symposium. June 26 to July 1, 2023, signed and Dr. Cynthia Tigno, the 43rd APAMS co-convener. Again, thank you very much, Ma'am Cinch.
Thank you very much.
And challenging PAASE to lead the way into the future. So in our next session, we have what we call as, hang on, let me share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen now? Mario, is it on?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. So, the first what follows after our after that talk is our plenary panel discussion, and in this plenary panel discussion we have 3 speakers, and the title for this is Reimagining the Training of the 21st Century STEAM Workforce. And so the 3 speakers that are going to talk in this session are leaders in the field, and they're exemplary because they have combined research, technology, innovation, not just to enhance and create innovative solutions to many problems, but also use that same process to promote the development of the future scientists. Okay, so our 3 speakers, the first one I'm going to introduce to you, and he probably doesn't need any introduction because he has, ever since he joined PAASE, he has been a leader in many of our activities. But let me introduce him anyway. Our speaker is